So this Colts-Cardinals game was an ugly game, but a fun game. Arizona really shot themselves in the foot, though. The Cardinals could have won this game. And they're now, I think, on a 3-game losing streak or a 4-game losing streak. Obviously, they lost to Detroit last week, which was a huge upset of the weekend. Yeah, now it's lost 3 games in a row. It's the Rams, the Lions, now the Colts. And you look back at those games, there was a lot of issues with the offense not being necessarily as explosive as it had been prior to Kyler Murray returning from injury or before he got hurt early in the season. And the offense did not look better tonight. I know they didn't have James Conner. I know they didn't have Rodney Hudson at center. They had a backup center, I think, or they had Max Garcia playing center, which is responsible for 2 points that the Colts got in this game because there was the safety. It was on the center, snapping the ball too low between Kyler Murray's legs. All right, that's how you get up 2 points there. But looking at the rest of the game, penalties were huge. I mean, the offensive line for the Cardinals, it's Josh Jones, right? He had 3 penalties by himself at guard. They were lining up at right guard. And they ended up having 11 penalties for 85 yards during the game. I would have expected that from the Colts almost, because the Colts had a lot of penalties early on too. They had 5 penalties for 40 yards. A lot of that came in the first half. And a lot of it was offsides and stuff like that on the offensive lines on both teams. But the Cardinals' offensive line was playing like I expected the Colts' offensive line to play, because the Colts had 4 backups on the offensive line. And at one point, they had a backup to a backup on the offensive line. You know, Braden Smith being the only healthy starter they had. And yet, their offensive line outplayed Arizona's for the most part. The Cardinals were out there getting false start penalties throughout the entire game. It never improved. So the offensive line for Arizona was pretty atrocious throughout most of this game. In terms of the penalties, that was one way they shot themselves in the foot. The other way, of course, Matt Prater just did not have it tonight. Whatever it was, misses 2 field goals, misses an extra point. And you look at it, if you take away that safety, it's now 20-16. So the Colts won 22-16. Take away the safety, it's 20-16. Add in 1 field goal for the Cardinals, it's suddenly 19-20. You add in the extra point, it's 20-20. It's a tie game. And it's suddenly everything's so different. I understand you can't necessarily say all these, well, change this, and expect it not to alter the rest of the game. But realistically, this was so close to being a game that should have been tied at the end of regulation, or at least been closer to being tied at the end of regulation than it was. And a lot comes down to, like I said, Cardinals kind of shooting themselves in the foot with the bad penalties in the offensive line playing poorly, the safety, the missed kicks. But certainly there's other issues as well. Because Kyler Murray in this offense has not been explosive. They have not been getting big plays. And again, they don't have DeAndre Hopkins, no James Conner. James Conner has all the touchdowns this year. DeAndre Hopkins, when healthy, plays at a Hall of Fame caliber level for a wide receiver. Not having those 2 guys hurts. I understand that. But at the same point, you have to realize that you're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for most, if not all, the remainder of the regular season. Maybe not even for the first round of the playoffs. You have to be ready to play without him, and they're not. They are not. I mean, this offense, with the exception of towards the very end of the game, on that last drive where they got the field goal to make it 16-22, every other possession, they did not look explosive. They didn't look like they could move the ball. They were inconsistent. They just were bad offensively. If not for that one long run by Kyler Murray, this is almost like a blowout for the Colts. Which is crazy to say, because the Colts really didn't do much outside of the one long run from Jonathan Taylor on offense. The Colts didn't have much going for them throughout this game. So it's somewhat mind-boggling to me how night and day it is for Arizona from the team we saw offensively at the start of the year to the team we see right now. Because right now, it's not even close. This is not maybe not even a top half of the league type of offense right now. You know, it was certainly not a top 10 offense, at least. So, and that defense is banged up in the secondary. The defense really only has one great cover corner to begin with in the secondary. And of course, they're not great for a run defense. Their pass rush is okay. But their defense is inherently limited. And if you don't have that explosive offense for Arizona, you're not going to be playing a lot of winning football. You're not going to be competing for an NFC Championship berth if you're not playing elite offense, because the defense, like I said, is good but not great. And as for the Colts, I mean, the Colts, in my opinion, coming into this game were one of the hottest, if not the hottest team in the NFL, after beating New England, the team that I previously thought was one of the hotter teams in the league. Jonathan Taylor comes in. He ends up getting tackled, I think, 7 or 8 times for a loss. So props to Arizona for actually holding him to a pretty low mark after that 43-yard run to open the game. Overall, the Colts were not very impressive. I think Carson Wentz had some very bad throws. Some plays that could have been intercepted, could have been turnovers that just weren't. Michael Pittman Jr. was impressive. Jonathan Taylor, for the most part, had a really good game, even though he was slowed down quite a bit. T.Y. Hilton looks good. T.Y. Hilton, coming back into the game, played well. And, he's been injured quite a bit this year, but he was playing at the level that you needed him to play at, because you have Michael Pittman Jr. be your wide receiver 1. Now it's time for Hilton to be that wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 when Zach Pascal gets back. So T.Y. Hilton had a pretty good game. I was encouraged by what I saw from him. Again, the offensive line, 4 backups out there. Braden Smith being your only starter. Eric Fisher gets hurt early in the game, leaves and does not come back. Darius Leonard was out on defense. So lots of players missing because of COVID or because of injuries for the Colts. And yet they still held Arizona to 16 points. And they still ran for over 100 yards. And they still arguably had the better offensive line in this game. So I think the Colts have to be very impressed with what they accomplished in this outing, despite the fact they never sacked Kyler Murray. They got some good pressure on him, though. They did admittedly flush him from the pocket a couple times, make him throw prematurely to throw off his back foot, and he missed a couple of shots. Carson Wentz, like I said, did not have a great game. Kyler Murray honestly didn't have a good game either. So both quarterbacks trying to play poorly. And the defenses, give and take. It was a low-scoring game. And I did have some big plays, but there were occasional blow-ups there or occasional bad penalties on both teams. But overall, I thought it was a fun game to watch in a sense. You got to see some kind of unique styles you weren't expecting from this matchup, especially after Jonathan Taylor had the long run to open the game, and then Kyler Murray responded. It's been a long day, guys. Kyler Murray responds, and you kind of expected it to be more of a high-scoring affair, and then it just wasn't. So, bit of a surprise game because of the injuries, because of COVID, because of the score, everything like that. I'm not sure if it was actually fun to watch or not, really. I was kind of frustrated at points because there were so many flags on the offensive lines. But, hey, big win for the Colts. They still have a chance to win, actually, the AFC South if Tennessee loses out, I believe. There's still a chance for the Colts to win the AFC South. And now, if Arizona losing like this, dropping back, there's a chance the Rams overtake them and end up winning the NFC West after Arizona had a massive start of the year with a big winning streak and they had a lead. Now they're kind of blown it, and now they're falling back to earth at mock speed. It's unfortunate for Arizona, but Kyler Murray, he's got to figure out what he's doing here. He just has to, because right now, I get it, the whole team is a problem. The offensive line's a problem. The receiving core is a problem. Injuries, COVID, I get that. But Kyler Murray is the leader of this team. He needs to figure out what he's doing, because he has not been good since coming back from injury. Him and Cliff Kingsbury need to get together and figure out something new, because for what they're doing right now, just is not working.